Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After last week's exhibition of Eldritch Horror, we're going to step away from the Arkham Horror files, but not the Cthulhu mythos. This week we're going to play through another of the Call of Cthulhu Alone adventures from Chaosium Incorporated. This week we find ourselves alone against the flames. I won't spoil the setting since we'll have plenty of backstory for that in the first few entries. If you remember back to when we played Alone Against the Frost back in June, we had a group of pre-created investigators then that we were playing with. Unlike then, however, this time we're going to be creating a new investigator from scratch. This will also serve an additional purpose as I'm trying to build my roster of characters, especially with my group starting Masks of Nyarlathotep soon. I'll be one of the players in that group, though I'm also working on becoming a keeper myself. But anyway, that will be enough musing on that front. If we end up with a character who survives this adventure, I'll go ahead and flesh out his or her backstory in this video as well. With that, though, let's go ahead and get this adventure started. Before we jump all the way in, just a quick recollection of how the skill tests work in Call of Cthulhu. We'll be rolling these D100 percentile dice. So this will be our 10s digit die, and this will be our 1s digit die. A roll like that, with both the elder signs facing up, is a roll of a 100. So this is one game where we don't want to roll high. We want to be we basically want to be above the... We have our skill value and we want to be under that to determine whether or not we pass a skill test. So, let's go ahead and get this adventure on the road, and we'll start with entry 1. Alright. Entry 1. The sun is high in the sky, a merciless ball of heat. You feel scorched by the time you reach the bus halt in front of Osborne's drugstore. It's a relief to put down your heavy cases and take off your hat for a moment. You fan your face. It has been a long summer here in your hometown, and yet a curiously empty one. You look across the street at the grubby butcher's shop, the grocer's with its faded awning, and the shabby tobacconist. Mistrustful faces glare at you as they pass, eyeing your clothes and luggage. It was your parents' choice to live here, not yours. You were happy down south as a child, among Providence's white-walled houses and leafy churchyards. Perhaps this new job in Arkham will supply the change you need. Yet everybody you know in the world lives here. You know nobody in Arkham, not one soul. You ask yourself one last time if you are doing the right thing. The answer is here. None of your supposed friends have come to see you off. You are alone. Whatever challenges lie in Arkham, it will be a new life, and a brave one. A small gray motor coach approaches and rattles to a stop. You put your hat back on and pick up your cases. Go to 263. Alright, so we're going to 263. As you might recall from Alone Against the Frost, this is going to be another basically choose-your-own-adventure style adventure. So, entry 263. Two young men with sullen expressions alight from the coach. One looks you up and down before heading away. The driver also steps down, glancing at you before crossing the road to visit the tobacconist. When he returns, he is rolling a cigarette between his yellowed fingers. He gives it a final twist and examines you as he reaches for his matchbox. He is a thin man in his 50s, dressed in a stained shirt with the bus company emblem, yet his eyes are sharp in their dark sockets. Where to? You show him your ticket for Ossipee. From there you will connect to Rochester and Portsmouth, before the coastal line to Newburyport, and finally, Arkham. You should be able to afford a rail ticket for at least some of the way. Otherwise, this will be the first of many long bus trips. The driver scratches the match and lights his cigarette. The end flares as he takes a draw. Then he exhales and gestures to the back of the coach. Luggage rack's up there. Look at your investigator sheet. At the top, you have spaces for 8 characteristics: strength, constitution, power, dexterity, appearance, size, intelligence, and education. Allocate the following values among them, writing them in the large square beside each: 40, 350s, 260s, 70, and an 80. After we've allocated each skill, go to 8. So let me make some quick notes here. 40, 50, 50, 50, 60, 60, 70, 80. And now we'll move down to the character sheet. So it's a little bit hard to see, but I actually did grab the character sheet from Dr. Nadelman when we played through Alone Against the Frost back in June. So you can see up here that we already have the values allocated for the characteristics. Whereas this time, this is the character sheet we're going to be working from this time, and you can see all of the characteristic values. I'll zoom out so you can see it a little bit better. All the characteristic values over here are blank. So we're going to take that list of values that we were given and allocate those. So I'll actually bring the character sheet for Dr. Nadelman out of the way. File that back in there. I need to make a print of some more character sheets. And we'll use this folder as a writing surface. So, the kind of character I want to make this time, I want to make a little bit more of a combat-oriented character. So, I'm going to find where here we go. Okay, so, yep, here's what I want. Looking for the reference of what each characteristic actually does. So this time I want kind of a more combat-oriented character. So we're going to go with somebody who's pretty high on strength. So I actually want to go for a fighter, basically, is what I'm looking for here. So we're going to assign the 80 to... we'll assign the 80 to strength. It's going to be hard to do this around the camera, but I think I can manage. So we've got the 80 assigned. The 70 I'm going to give to Constitution. Yeah, we'll give the 70 to Constitution. Then we'll go for a 60 in Strength. The other 60 I'm going to put in... I'm going to put the 60 in Intelligence. Yeah, we'll put the 60 in Intelligence. Make that a little easier for me to read later. 60 in Intelligence, which means I have my 50s and a 40. I'm going to put the 40 in Education because what I'm visualizing here is a character that really hasn't spent a lot of time in a formalized school setting or anything like that, but somebody who's kind of tough as nails, basically. Which means the 50s are going to go everywhere else, into Dexterity, Appearance, and Power. So now that those are all handled, now we go to Entry 8. I'll get the character sheet back out of the way for a second. So now we'll go to Entry 8. The driver smokes and watches as you drag your cases to the back of the motor coach. The rack is set inconveniently high on the vehicle. You get a grip on the heavier case. If your size is 40, go to 23. If your size is higher than this, go to 38, and we put a 60 in size. So we go to 38. Entry 38. The driver continues to enjoy his cigarette, watching with keen interest as you struggle with the cases. You grit your teeth and help and heave the second one into place. Perhaps the residents of Arkham will have better manners. Go to 233. Knowing what we know about Arkham, that doesn't... well, it's possible, but we're definitely going to be encountering probably more dangerous stuff there. But anyway. Entry 233. The driver flicks his cigarette into the gutter and steps into the motor coach. Its engine coughs into life. You board, grateful that you will be the only passenger for the initial part of your trip at least. With mixed emotions, you watch from the window as the tired avenues of your old home slip behind you, receding into the distance. For a few minutes, you can still see the church spire over the brow of a low hill. Then the road dips, and it, too, is gone. Arkham is your new home. You will travel there and make a new start. You will see two smaller boxes to the right of each characteristic value. Have each value rounding down, and write the result in the upper right box. Also divide each value by 5, again rounding down, and write the result in the lower right box. We will use those numbers later. If you're using the interactive PDF version, which we're not, in the strip below you will see tracks that record sanity and magic points. Beginning sanity is equal to your original power, and beginning magic points are the same as the value you've just assigned for power divided by 5. Mark those on the tracks, then go to 134. So with that, let's go back to the character sheet once again. So here you can see each of the two boxes next to the characteristic values. So for the first one, we're going to have them. So 40, writing at a weird angle, 35, 30, 25, 25, 30, 25, 20. And we divide by 5. 16, 14, 12, rounding, okay, never mind, 10, 10, 12, 10, 8. Okay, going to entry 134. Wait a minute, before we do that, I almost forgot. We also have the sanity and magic points track. So sanity is going to be equal to our original power, which is 50. So we'll mark that over here. And then beginning sanity is power divided by, or beginning magic points is sanity is power divided by 5. So we start off with 10 power. So 10 magic points, 50 sanity. Okay. Now we're ready to go to 134. All right. Entry 134. The coach putters through the countryside. At first, the interior is stifling and your stomach lurches with every bend in the road. However, the driver opens his window, and by switching seats, you find a spot where the breeze hits your face. You soon relax into the journey, observing the quaint little hamlets that the coach serves. A heavy-set woman boards at one settlement and gives you a polite nod. She gets off at the next one. The road rises a little, passing cornfields and orchards. The leaves are turning, and the trees are alive with glorious reds and golds. You have just begun to doze when the driver takes a tight bend at speed. Uh-oh. All right, so there's a lot here. We'll take it all in one shot. We'll take it all one at a time. Add size and constitution together, then divide the total by 10, rounding down. This is the starting value of your hit points. Mark it on your investigator sheet. Your current total may drop, but it is unlikely to exceed the starting value. Okay, so size and constitution added together. So we have size. So size is 60 plus a constitution of 70, which is 130, divided by 10. That's 13. So that's our starting hit points. We also have a luck. Okay, I'll come back to this. You also have a luck score. Roll 3 6-sided dice. We call this 3d6. Multiply your 3d6 roll by 5 to get your beginning luck and mark it on your investigator sheet. So we'll grab 3d6s out. Okay. So there are our d6s. I'll bring the dice tower in shot. And we'll do that. That'll work. All right, so 3d6, and then we're multiplying the result by 5. Okay, 2, 6, and 4, which totals to 12 times 5. Yes, so we have 60 luck, which isn't terrible. Very middle of the road. So we'll grab the pencil, we'll bring the dice tower. Well, I don't want to go too far with it because we're going to need that back in shot. So we have 60 luck that we start with. So 260. Okay. Everything's in pencil, so it's probably pretty hard to read, but we'll come back here. Now you must make a roll against your dex. Roll 1d100. This means rolling 2 10-sided dice and using one value for the tens and one value for the units. Unless one die is clearly a tens die, which we have a set of a tens and a ones die. You may be tempted to skip such rolls and simply pretend you pass. But Call of Cthulhu is a game of mystery and horror. The terrible disasters that can befall your character are part of the fun. You will not necessarily have more fun if you pass every roll than you would have if you failed. If you passed the dex roll, go to 261. If you failed the dex roll, go to 59. Okay, so we look at our dex and we assigned a 50 to it, so we need to roll. So we need to roll at or under 50. All right, let's find out. And we rolled, let me move that. And we rolled a 64, so we failed the dex roll. So we moved to 59. A desperate yell awakens you. You feel yourself slide from the seat as the driver spins the wheel and the motor coach plunges off the road. Too late, you reach for the seat in front. You fall into the aisle and your ribs crash against the edge of the seat opposite. Breath rushes out of you. The coach stops with a thump. Your driver leaps from his seat into the road. As you sprawl, dizzy in the aisle, you hear a string of incendiary curses. The driver climbs back into the cab and sees you on the floor. He looks concerned and assists you back into your seat. You see what has happened now. A Fordson tractor has stopped in the road and he had to swerve to avoid the steel obstacle. Sorry, he says. All them fields and he has to pick the road to park. You all right? You don't think anything's broken, but you'll have a colorful bruise for the next few days. He backs the coach up a little and threads it around the tractor, glaring at the farmer. You lost 1 hit point in the accident. Mark the loss on your investigator sheet, but keep track of the original value. You will eventually heal back up to this value. If you drop to 0 hit points, you will fall unconscious and you might die. Now go to 71. So first we are going to note the loss of the 1 hit point. So we're down to 12. And then we go to 71. You resume your journey. The driver takes the curves with more caution than before. He glances over his shoulder at you a couple of times. Sorry about before, he says. That fellow was dumber than a hog. I'm Silas. What's your name? The accident was at least as much Silas's fault as the farmer's, but it doesn't seem shrewd to antagonize the man while he is driving you through the middle of nowhere. Make up a name for your character and record it on your investigator sheet. You may add your age. For the purposes of this adventure, your character should probably be aged between 23 and 36. So the name we're going to come up with here is... let's go with... Silas Miller, I guess. So we're going to take the Silas name as well. The coach turns onto a narrower road, which weaves uphill through woodland. Silas becomes chatty. Going to Arkham, eh? Can't say I ever heard of the place. Went to Boston once. Didn't like it. Too much hustle and bustle. You got family there? A special someone waiting? The afternoon is wearing on. You see no harm in confiding in Silas about your new life. A job, eh? What's your line? Choose an occupation for your character from the following options. If you're an antiquarian, go to 102. If you're a doctor of medicine, go to 226. If you're a journalist, go to 239. If you're a private investigator, go to 249. If you're a professor, go to 265. Now, for the character I'm rolling, I think the best occupation that's going to be suited for him is to be a private investigator. So, PI, and we'll go to 249. Let's see if I can find it. Ah, here we go. Entry 249. You skirt around the details of the profession in your usual way, mentioning only that you have helped the police clear up various problems in the past. Your heart pounds a little faster as you think of the post you have secured at the Blackwood Detective Agency. You've had enough of investigating marital infidelities and bank clerks on the take. It sounds like the Blackwood Agency is just the opportunity you need to cut your teeth on some real villainy. Silas narrows his eyes, but he says nothing. Your credit rating skill is 20%, so similar to... Actually, we'll read through all of this and we'll move back down to the character sheet. Your occupation skills are art, craft, photography, disguise, law, library use, psychology, spot hidden, and one of either charm, fast talk, intimidate, or persuade. You may also pick any other skill except Cthulhu Mythos as a personal specialty. Allocate the following values among these occupation skills, writing them in the large square beside each. 70, 260s, 350s, 240s. Ignore any starting value already mentioned on the investigator sheet, then go to 128. So with that, let's move back down to the character sheet once again. Okay, so we are back down at the character sheet. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the credit rating of 20%. So basically what credit rating means is that's basically the money that you got. So that's basically like your money. That's basically like your money and asset supply. There'll be more that goes into that if we end up fleshing this character out. But now we also have to set up our occupation skills. The additional skill I've chosen, and I want to make sure this does what I think it does. I want to make sure that one of my skills does what I think it does. Yes, okay. So as you heard, we have our occupation skills. I've also added track in, which I figure makes thematic sense for a private investigator because they occasionally do have to track somebody down. So we'll use that as his personal interest skill. But I still think it fits very well in the scope of a private investigator. So we also heard the values in there. I'm going to throw the 70 in. I'm going to throw the 70 into intimidate, just because private investigators often have to be intimidating. Then we've got two 60s, which I'm going to throw 60 into spot hidden. Actually, I'm going to throw a 60 into track as well. We'll put a 50 in psychology, a 50 into photography, a 50 into disguise, and then law and library use will get 40s. Okay, you might also have noticed that we do have the same boxes as well. Those will eventually end up being the fifth and half values, but we're not going to do that just yet. Actually, we might as well go ahead and do that now real quick. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and do the fifth and half now. So 25, 10, 10, 4, 25, 10, 35, 14, 28, 28, 25, 10, 30, 12, and 30, 12. Okay. Alright, so now that we've got that all set up, now we'll go to, where were we? Here we go. Back to 128. 128. You realize Silas hasn't made a stop since the incident with the tractor. The motor coach winds its way uphill. However, your thoughts are interrupted as the road crests a ridge and you are treated to a magnificent view of the vista below. A creek snakes through the valley, breaking the rich autumn palette of the tree line. In the distance, the white mountains rise into hazy cloud. There is no settlement, not even a cabin, as far as the eye can see. Birds drift through the treetops, and you can just make out what might be two white-tailed deer lingering by the water. Perhaps you were making a mistake by moving to the city. Could you survive on your own in this lush wilderness? You have a base ability in most skills, listed in brackets after the skill name on the investigator sheet. For instance, you have a 20% in climb and a base dodge equal to half your dex. Choose 4 skills which are not your occupation skills, nor Cthulhu Mythos. These are your personal interest skills. Boost each of these by 20 points. At this point, you may like to calculate half and 1/5 values for each skill, which we've already done already. Now go to 144. So we're going to take 4 of these skills and boost them by 20%. We already have stealth. So I'm actually going to take occult, natural world, locksmith, and we'll take language other, and we'll take Spanish. We'll explain some of these skill choices a little later in the when we go to flesh out the backstory. But anyway, now we go to 144. Here we go. The motor coach rattles on through the hills and Silas lapses into silence. The sky darkens behind you, pinks tinting the clouds as the sun descends. Finally, a welcome sight comes into view. A settlement on the crest of a hill. This doesn't look like the pictures we've seen of Ossipee, but perhaps you can persuade Silas to stop while you stretch your legs. Minutes later, a harsh stuttering from the engine interrupts your reverie. Silas frowns and rattles the gear stick. The motor coach falters in its ascent. Silas utters a curse you don't recognize and grinds his teeth, struggling at the wheel. You seem to inch up the hill until you reach the first buildings, low dwellings constructed from a rough red stone. Silas wrestles the coach into a small bay off the road. He scrambles from his seat and makes for the engine compartment. You must now choose to make a roll against Drive Auto or Psychology. If you choose Drive Auto, you need a roll equal to or less than the skill value. If you choose Psychology, you need a hard success. Roll is equal to half. This is a roll equal to or less than half the skill value, the number in the upper right box. You may attempt to only one skill roll. If you succeed against Drive Auto, go to 174. If you roll a hard success against Psychology, go to 162. If you fail your roll, go to 194. So as we look at the character sheet, and I'll bring this up so it's a little bit easier to read. We didn't put any points into Drive Auto, but we have a base value of 20. Whereas we put points into Psychology, and yes, I know my handwriting is terrible. I will not make any apologies for that. We put points into Psychology. This is where the value in the upper right corner, right there, is going to come into play. So if we make a hard roll against Psychology, we're trying to be under a 25. So I think we are going to make a hard roll against Psychology. This is still going to be a tough roll any way we slice it, but any little help that we can get on this is going to be very helpful. So we'll bring the dice tower back in shot. All right. Anyway, now remember, we need to make a roll against a skill value of 25 for a hard Psychology roll. That is a 40, so we definitely failed that. Which means we go to 194. 190. Here we go. 194. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. That might make it easier to read. There we go. Silas opens the engine compartment and sticks his head inside. The hot metal pops and sizzles. He pokes at various components, then withdraws and wipes his brow, smearing it with dark grease. I ain't sure what's wrong. Might be the oil pressure. Might be something knocked off kilter when we took that spill. Can't do much until the engine cools, neither. And with the light failing, I reckon we'll be here through the night. He wipes his hand on a rag. The shadows from your surroundings are already long and the air is chilly. You feel stiff from the journey, and a night in the rickety coach sounds unappealing. Silas sees your dismay. This here's Emberhead. Miles from any place. I only come through twice a week. But the folks here are good people. May Ledbetter keeps a spare room. She'll look after you. Up that alley, turn right, first house on the left. He scratches his cheek, looks again into the engine compartment, and spits on the ground. Meet me back here at 8 in the morning, and we'll see how's we stand. To look for May Ledbetter's house, go to 267. To ask Silas where he will spend the night, go to 251. To challenge Silas about the breakdown, go to 257. He's got no guff. He doesn't take guff from anybody, but he's very practical. So he's just going to go search for May Ledbetter's house. But 267 is where we're going. You drag your cases between the sullen buildings. You feel surprisingly weary, considering you've spent all day sitting down. Silas's directions lead you to a modest dwelling with a slate roof. A nameplate reads Ledbetter, and underneath, a sign in neat copperplate reads Lodging Room. The lane around you is gloomy, but a lamp flickers in the window. A breeze chills your face. You're not about to begin your new life by sleeping in the street. You rap on the weather-beaten door. Go to 4. Sorry about that. Had to take a small break and close up so I could close up the apartment and get the air conditioning going because it's getting warm already. Anyway, entry 4. After a moment, you hear footsteps inside the house. A bolt is drawn back and the wooden door swings open. A figure with loose curls and a rough-looking house dress peers at you. Her gaze takes in your traveling suit and your cases. Her voice has a slight Irish lilt. Hello. Should I take it as you're looking for a room for the night? I'll stop my lousy effort at an Irish accent. You inquire as to her rates, suppressing a grimace. As far as you've seen, the village does not offer you many alternatives. Oh, you'll find them very reasonable, she says. You look tired. I'm May. Come inside and we'll talk over a cup of tea. The Ledbetter house feels cramped with a low ceiling and simple fittings, but it is well kept and a cheerful fire crackles in the grate. The aroma of the tea is soothing and the cup warms your fingers. Have you come to Emberhead for the festival? Asks May. To explain what happened with Silas and the coach, go to 14. To ask about the festival, go to 21. We're going to tell her about Silas and the coach, so go to 14. May shakes her head and you glimpse a moment of deep-seated anger in her green eyes. He always drives too fast. Thinks the road is made for him and him alone. He hit a mare some years back. That was a terrible thing. You should have seen the state of the coach. You'd be surprised at the damage done. She sips her tea and gazes past you, into the corner of the room. With living here, though, we can't afford to antagonize the man. He's about the only link we have to the world at large, and he's not a bad soul at heart. I suppose that going the same route for 15 years makes a man careless. You have to forgive him. May goes silent for a long moment. Then her eyes flick back to you. But you didn't come here to listen to me blather, and you must be hungry. I can rustle up a bit of stew. How would that be? You ask again about her rates, and May names a price so low you accept it without hesitation. The room is small but comfortable, and the stew dark and hearty. After dinner, you have a couple hours before your usual bedtime. To talk to May some more, go to 31. To walk around outside and get your bearings, go to 75. To turn in for an early night, go to 63. I think we're going to walk around and get our bearings a little bit. So, let's go to 75. Here we go. 75. Come on. May's brow creases when you announce your intention to take a stroll. Mind how you go, she says. Emberhead's surrounded by cliffs, and we don't have your fancy street lamps here. Take the lantern and watch your step. Outside, you see what she means. The sky is overcast, and only a few glimmers of moonlight peek from the clouds. Without the heavy lantern, you'd be walking in near total darkness. You cannot hope to get an overview of the village tonight. Maze Street is a narrow passage hemmed in by squat, dark dwellings. At the end, however, it opens up. A wide thoroughfare leads off to your right. A crude sign names it Silbury Street. To the left, a few yards away, your light picks out the crooked posts of a simple fence, and beyond that, the ground drops away into darkness. You take a couple of steps closer, but you can see nothing. Air from below cools your face. Then some instinct makes you look around. Go to 86. An ink-black figure stands on the road about 20 yards behind you. It stares at you. You form the sudden impression that it will run at you and throw you over the cliff edge. This is unsettling. Seeing it has been spotted, the figure slips down an alley. To return to the safety of the Ledbetter house, go to 100. To confront the dark figure, go to 121. I think we're going to confront the dark figure. I mean, we are alone in a strange place, and so far our only sanctuary seems to be the Ledbetter place, but I want as much information as I can get my hands on here. Which will probably end up being part of the story. As you approach, the figure takes a pace back, then another. It slips down an alley between two buildings. To catch your target, you must make a track roll. If you succeed, go to 141. If you fail, go to 130. Alright, so our track, as we saw, is 60. I took that as one of the occupation skills when I rolled this Silas up at first. So we have to be at or under 60. That is a 74, so we fail. Let's see, go to 130. The figure moves fast with almost silent steps. You are hampered with a heavy lantern in an unfamiliar environment. You emerge from the alley into a dusty courtyard and can detect no sign of your quarry. You scratch around for a few minutes, but the figure has gone. It seems unwise to continue your stroll through unknown, dark streets while this threatening presence is abroad. You head back to the Ledbetter house. May lets you in and settles back in her chair. Soon she begins to yawn. I believe I'll turn in. When do you like breakfast? Go to 63. So we tried to confront a dark figure, but we came up short. So let's find out what we've got here. As May stands, you hear a clunk behind you. You look over your shoulder, but all you can see is a wooden door securely closed. May tuts. The young lady of the house. She'll have been listening to us. Ruth, come and greet our guest. There is a short pause, and then the door creaks open. Two wide eyes peer at you from the gap, between tousled hair and a rough nightgown. What do you say? The eyes blink. Pleased to meet you. Now get back to bed. The door closes again. My daughter Ruth. 10 years this summer. She's a delight and a torment all in one. Don't worry. She sleeps in with me. She'll not disturb you. Good night now. You retire to your room. It is a little chilly, but you are too tired to worry about lighting the fire. The sheets are clean and the bed soon warms up. The silence outside is strange after living in a town for so long, but you soon drop off. Now go to 154. Okay. 154. You dream of fire in the grate, coruscating colors shimmering through the dancing tongues of flame. At first they're tiny, almost microscopic, but they grow and grow until a kaleidoscopic inferno spills from the fireplace, spreading across the floor, up the sheets. You wake with a start. Daylight glints through the curtains. You get up and examine the grate, blinking the sleep from your eyes. It is quite cold. If you have taken any damage, you may heal 1 hit point back from your night's sleep. Now go to 166. As you'll recall, we did take 1 hit point of damage from the crash earlier, when we first ended up crashing from Silas taking that turn at speed. Back on our journey. So we go to 166. May seems to have no running water, but has supplied some in a ceramic jug. You freshen up at the washstand and go in. She cooks a hearty breakfast and leaves you in peace to eat. At about 7:30, you are paid up, packed, and ready to go. You bid May goodbye, and she wishes you the best for your new career in Arkham. If you succeeded at a skill test last night and wish to investigate the results further, go to 178. Otherwise, go to 192. Unfortunately, we didn't succeed at a skill roll, so we go to 192. Entry 192. You are already tired of your heavy bags. Hopefully Silas has repaired the motor coach and you can resume your long journey. A sourpuss he might be, but the old driver seems to understand his vehicle well enough. You pause to check your watch, still 20 minutes early, and round the final corner. The motor coach is gone. You put your bags down and search the area, trekking up and down slopes and around corners. At the edge of the village, you trace the long road back as it winds across the hills. 8 o'clock comes and goes. There's no coach to be seen. A passing villager notices your bags. Looking for the bus? I heard him take off at first light. He's due back in 3 or 4 days. If you need a place to stay, May Ledbetter rents a room. The man raises his hat to you and strolls on into the village. You curse Silas under your breath. Perhaps he went for parts. But you wonder if the old goat has stranded you here on purpose. Go to 218. Oh boy. That's called an unwelcome twist of fate. .218. May is doing laundry and looks surprised to see you again. Forget something? When you explain the situation, she offers to store your bags while you try to arrange alternative transportation. You are grateful to relinquish the load. Nobody here is anything like a car. She strokes her chin and narrows her eyes. Maybe you could find somebody with a horse and a cart for your bags. I could ask around later. Try Mr. Winters at the village hall. He'll know if anyone will. Or ask among the artisans. Their workshops are first left on Silbury Street. She reaches over and squeezes your wrist. Don't worry. I won't see you sleeping in the street. Money or no money. You thank May and turn to face the village. Go to 6. Alright, so at least we have one person on our side here who's not willing to see us in the street. Alright. Entry 6. You wander the streets of Ember Head without any particular destination in mind. The village is built on a relatively flat upland with splendid views. To the north, the hazy tips of the White Mountains reach for the heavens. To the south, the sparkling waters of Lake Winnipesaukee touch the horizon. The village itself takes less than 5 minutes to cross from edge to edge. You arrived on the winding road to the west. The only other road leads to the south, following a lower ridge of land as it turns east. In the southwest of the village, an open grassy space borders a ruined church, its graveyard cresting the cliffs. To the northeast, the 3 main thoroughfares meet at a raised black metal structure. It looms, stark against the blue sky. You may ask about local transport at the local general store, go to 16. Seek out the village hall, go to 84. Walk down the lower level and check out the eastern road, go to 115. Examine the large metal structure, go to 57. Explore the church, go to 34. Or look for local people with their own transport needs, go to 96. You know what, since we are feeling mildly adventurous, sorry my voice cracked, let's go down to the lower level and check out the eastern road. So we'll go to 115. Okay. 115. The air is fresh and the walk down to the lower ridge invigorating. You notice the cultivated fields stretching through the lowlands around Emberhead, and among the crops some livestock, but no horses. Are you going to have to make your onward journey on foot? Further down, the road skirts the edge of the ridge and descends. There are a few scattered hovels here, with signs of habitation. They are set a substantial distance apart. As you examine them, a door opens, and an older man steps out. He wears a bedraggled suit, but carries a piece of cloth, which he tosses over his head like a hood. As he does this, he sees you and freezes. Make a luck roll. If you succeed, go to 127. If you fail, turn to 135. So our luck, as we recall, is 60. Which is, again, what we want to be at or under. That is a 50... Let me zoom in on this. That is a 54, though, so we do pass. So we go to 127. I'll zoom back out. So 127. The man looks up at the village, scanning the cliff tops. You get a brief flash of his face. There's something unsettling about it. Then he turns to walk away from the road. But as he does, he raises a hand and slowly beckons to you. If you follow the strange man, turn to 142. If this seems unwise, turn to 160. You know what? I think we are going to follow him. So let's go to 142. You follow the man around the outcrop. He glances up, then steps between two rocks and vanishes. Closer inspection reveals a narrow channel leading into the cliff. There is just enough light to see a small, natural chamber within. You will be uncomfortably close to this man if you go inside. To follow him in, turn to 191. To keep your distance, go to 160. I think we're going to follow him in. Here's 191. With wary steps, you squeeze between rocky outcrops and enter the concealed chamber, almost banging your head on the low ceiling. The man settles back against the wall and watches until you draw close. Then he slides back his hood. Make a sanity roll. If you fail, lose 1 sanity, then go to 199. So this time our sanity is still 50. So let's see what we get here. I'll zoom in so you can see the result. That's a 9... What is that? I think whether that's a 96 or... I think we got it there. Yeah, that's a 96, so we lose 1 sanity. So we go down to 49 sanity. I had to spend way too much luck and basically break this character. That's a way you can manipulate rolls. You can spend luck to change the skill value. So we go to 199. Alright. $199. Some of the man's face remains. A strip from the side of his jaw to his right eye socket is healthy and pale, if aged, but the left side is consumed by angry scar tissue. One eye droops, hooded by melted flesh, and the nostril on that side is pulled open to leave a gaping hole. The disfigured man studies your reaction with his one good eye. Name's Arbogast. Willard Arbogast. Guess I don't need to ask what brings you to Emberhead. If you claim to have come to the festival, go to 206. If you admit that Silas has stranded you here, go to 214. We're not even going to try to claim that Silas, or that we came for the festival. Silas definitely stranded us here. Or at least I'm wondering about that, but that's what we're going to run with. $214. That swollen mouth gives a little twist downwards. Son of a devil has rat's blood. His fingers tighten into a fist. Go to 221. I gather having rat's blood is nothing good, but anyway. Alright, 221. Arbogast fixes you with a lopsided yet intense stare. You seek me out, eh? He looks up at the cave ceiling. Which one of them told you about me? Never mind, it don't matter. Truth is, they fear what I know. They'd never come at me direct. Don't want to end up like old Arbogast. He giggles. The high-pitched sound is all the more grotesque coming from those bloated lips. Then, abruptly, his gaze turns to iron. Emberhead died 40 years ago. Shattered by flame, consumed by the stars themselves. The ancient hill was cleansed by inferno. and from the blackened ground came new life, as in the way of all things. The Abenaki knew. Arbogast wipes his nose on his sleeve, except none of that happened. The flames were turned away. The necessary death postponed a year, and a year again. And now those up there, he stabs a scrawny finger at the ceiling, think themselves saviors of the village. They think they can defy the great old ones. Yeah, Cthulhu. He shakes his head. With strange aeons, their lives matter less than the blink of an eye. A fierce intelligence burns in his gaze, but you suspect Arbogast may be quite insane. Should his mood change, it would not be difficult for him to seize one of the loose rocks and crack your skull with it. To ask Arbogast about the Abenaki, turn to 227. To ask him about the great old ones, turn to 237. To ask him about the villagers, go to 245. To leave while you still can, go to 253. We've come way too far at this point. We might as well get some information out of him. So let's ask him about the Abenaki. The Abenaki? He frowns. They knew this land and cherished it. They lived here in harmony for their allotted time. Air and earth, water and fire. They accepted every daybreak as a gift, and they trod lightly on the land. Yet we came and we ended them. Their time is past. Now ours, too, must end. Arbogast runs a hand through his hair. A wide strip is missing on the left side, displaced by scar tissue. He climbs to his feet. Go to 259. Arbogast pauses in the shadows. There's something about you, something the previous ones never had. Perhaps you can make it through. If you want to hear more, meet me again after dark. 9 o'clock. The graveyard on the other side. He lifts a gnarled finger. Don't be followed, else I won't be there. This ain't the time of year for a showdown. Arbogast wipes his nose on his sleeve again. Go now. Their eyes are on me. And stranger, don't try to run. You'll never make it. You emerge into the sunlight, blinking and more than a little unshaken. You have discovered a secret. Later tonight, the text will offer you a chance to follow up on a previous appointment. At that point, if you wish to meet with Arbogast again, add 20 to your current entry number and go to that new entry. For now, go to 160. Okay, so I'll make a quick note of that. Secret... Previous appointment... And that will be entry plus 20. For now, we go to 160. Alright. You turn back to the road and your core business, getting out of Emberhead and onwards to Ossipee. The ridge gives you a good viewpoint from which you can see the course of the road. It winds with the hills, disappearing into woodland for a while before emerging further on. You lose sight of it somewhere towards a second patch of woodland. By your best estimation, that is at least 6 or 7 miles distant. You see no other settlements or traffic. It may be worth taking a chance walking. The weather is still mild, but you'll need supplies before you attempt it. Go to 25. Except we have to remember what Arbogast told us. Not to run, we won't make it. You're beginning to get your bearings in Emberhead. Would you like to explore some more? You may choose another option from those below. Do not repeat a previous choice. Once you have tried 4 options, or before that if you're ready to move on, go to 3. So the only one we can't do is walk down and check out the eastern road, so I think we will examine the large metal structure, so we'll go to 57. You walk up the approach, the most central of the village's major streets. It points directly at the odd metal structure. As you emerge from the shade of the nearby buildings, you are greeted by a magnificent panorama spread from the north to the southeast. The last colors of fall tint the hills in a sleepy gold. The structure, by contrast, is made from uncompromising iron singed black. It supports an immense curved platform at the level of your head. Further struts snake up to a central point. It looks like they may have been some kind of sculpture at one time, but are now twisted and melted beyond recognition. An older gentleman passes, looking up at you with rheumy eyes. "Are you here for the festival?" he asks. "That's the beacon. When they light it, night after next, you'll be able to see it 10 miles away." He gives a little nod of satisfaction, then moves on, leaning on his walking stick. Now you notice bundles of wood, tied and stacked against the buildings nearby. Perhaps this festival would be an interesting diversion, but you really must head to Arkham as soon as possible. Make a spot hidden roll. If you succeed, go to 69, otherwise go to 25. So our spot hidden is 60. Actually, I think we're zoomed in pretty well here so we can see the result. That is a 68, so we just barely fail, which means we go to 25. Which, if it brings me back to where I think it does... Yep, it brings us back to our exploration hub. So we've already checked out the eastern road. We've examined the large metal structure. Now let's go to the church. So 34. You cross the street towards the church. As you glance to your left, your gaze alights on the large metal structure. Something bothers you about its positioning. You back up and look again. Yes. Emberhead's central thoroughfare points directly at the structure. This seems too precise to be a coincidence. You press on and are drawn into the shadow of the church. The building is in a sorry state. The top of the steeple is missing, a ragged gash of splintered boards marking its absence, and the floors beneath it have collapsed. It appears to have torn through the roof of the main building as it fell. Only the back half is still intact. The white paint, which once covered the church, has yellowed and peeled. It seems safe enough to explore the rear section. Old pews are stacked against the wall, choked with mildew. Most of the windows are broken. You guess this church has been disused for about 20 years. There's little more to interest you. Make a ride roll. You may have a bonus die. Roll the 10% die twice and take the lower result. If you succeed, go to 46. Otherwise, go to 25. So we didn't put any points into ride, which means we're facing a 5%. So this is going to be a very, very ugly roll. Which means we're going to need that. We're basically going to need that bonus die, unless I roll by miracle, unless I roll something low here. A 34, which means if this bonus die is a 0, we would pass. But I'm not willing to bet on my odds of that. I got a 1 in 10 chance of hitting it. Which I do not. I rolled a 34 both times, so we do fail, which takes us right back to our exploration hub. Let's see, and I think... I don't think we're really going to get too much more information out of this, so I think we're just going to move on. So we'll go to 3. Your morning exertions have left you hungry. You roam the streets of Emberhead looking for sustenance. There is nothing resembling the busy cafes of your hometown or anything that might be called a restaurant. This like that. There we go. It is beginning to look like you will have to get supplies from the general store when May Ledbetter comes down the street with a girl trailing in her wake. This must be Ruth. As she notices you, she races past your mother and approaches you with a smile. This is a different Ruth than from the shy creature of last night. As she reaches you, she stops and stretches her arms up in celebration. She looks up into your eyes. Abruptly, the smile drops from her face and she looks several years older. "Get out before the festival," she hisses. "Get out!" She blinks hard, then scuttles back towards her mother. May approaches, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. She smiles. "How are you getting on? Have you found transport?" Startled, you explain the frustrations of the situation. "I'd try Mr. Winters in the village hall. He's always in of an afternoon. You'll be hungry by now? Help yourself to any food in the house. The door's not locked." You glance at Ruth where she has squirreled herself behind her mother's legs. Her eyes implore you to silence. If you ask Ruth about what she said, go to 9. If you ask May about what Ruth said, go to 15. If you say nothing, go to 22. So there's something about that Ruth. I think we're just going to say nothing and go to 22. You take your leave of the Ledbetters and head toward their house. The door opens easily. In the low kitchen, you make a meal from stodgy bread and leftover stew. A window offers a view to the mountains. If you learned one thing this morning, it was that Emberhead streets hold little to occupy the visitor from out of town, but there is still about 5 hours of daylight remaining. You could take some provisions and the bare essentials from your luggage and set out in the hope of reaching another settlement before dark, or you could ask advice from this Mr. Winter. If you prepare and walk out of town, go to 28. If you head to the village hall instead, go to 11. So, as I remember from Arbogast earlier, trying to run is probably a dangerous idea, so I think we're going to go to 11. Alright, coming back to entry 11. The village hall overlooks the lower north of the ridge of the village. You walk along Silbury Street to find it, conscious of the oppressive black metal structure framed at the end of the road. The shutters of the hall are open and some windows left ajar. There is no knocker, but a little bell over the entrance tinkles as you push inside the front door. Inside, a sturdy door to your right is marked Private. To your left, an opening leads through to a bright room. You take a few steps inside. Benches line the walls, and there are 2 notice boards mounted between the windows. To examine the notice boards, go to 17. To knock on the closed door, go to 24. Let's take a look at those notice boards. The floorboards creak beneath you as you cross the room. You feel a slight spring in your step. Perhaps this room is used as a gymnasium for the village children. One notice board appears to be the adults of the community, and one for the children. The former looks neglected, featuring handwritten advertisements for household items and a yellowed note about telegraph pricing. There's nothing about the festival. The children's notice board has a schedule for weekly crochet services, and a number of paintings obviously done by the children themselves. Most are incoherent, though colorful. As best you can tell, they depict fireworks, or perhaps the tale of Joseph from the Book of Genesis. One has lost a pin and hangs upside down. It shows a giant bird attacking Emberhead, or it might simply be that the artist has not yet mastered the subtleties of scale. Make a spot hidden roll. If you succeed, go to 30. If you fail, go to 37. So spot hidden here is 60, which means that's what we need to roll. Alright, so trying to beat a 60, which we barely do not. So over to 37. Entry 37. The door scrapes behind you. A middle-aged, bespectacled gentleman appears in the doorway. May I help you? You explain you were visiting on May Ledbetter's recommendation. Ah. Well, I'm Clyde Winters. I'm not sure I can help you, but would you care for some coffee? I'm partial to a cup in the afternoon. He gestures to the open door behind him. This seems like a worthwhile opportunity, and you are a little thirsty. Go to 43. You step through the door marked Private. The other side of the village hall is in marked contrast to the public space. The room is compact, lined with shelves of books and file alcoves. One corner is reserved for a tiny pantry and what is presumably a water closet. You study Mr. Winter as he fills the percolator. Although thin on top, his hair is oiled and neatly swept back. His suit is a sober affair and well-tailored even if the cut is a little old-fashioned. A lesser man walking alone might have loosened his bow tie for comfort. On the desk against the opposite wall, you notice what looks like a telegraph set. To ask about the telegraph immediately, go to 46. To make small talk with Mr. Winters first, go to 49. As stir-crazy as I'm already starting to go in this small town, I just want to see what the telegraph's all about. So let's go to 56. The telegraph? As much as we value our isolation, we do need the link sometimes. You were hoping to send a message? I must apologize. The line has been down for 2 weeks. I reported the fault, but of course, they're not so speedy when the problem lies in a rural area. I'm expecting a repair the day after next. I do appreciate how frustrating this must be. The coach is doing, what, 3 days? But I think he's going west. Perhaps you might engage a wagon? One of the farmers might... You explain that you have asked a few of the residents already, but to no avail. I tell you what, Winters pours you a streaming cup of coffee. The liquid smells rich and strong. When the repair crew arrive, I'll ask them to take you back with them. How would that be? They might want $1 or 2 to grease the wheels. The day after tomorrow? It's less than ideal, but it's the first real opportunity you've had. To thank Winters and leave, go to 180. To ask him about his library, go to 62. I think we're grateful enough for this information to try to get out of here, so we'll go to 180. Go. Alright. 180. As the light fades, you return to the Ledbetter house and eat a light supper. May is unusually taciturn. Ruth's eyes flick to yours several times during the meal. There's an urgency there you can't quite interpret. Afterwards, May ushers the girl into their room. Come on. There we go. You have been in Emberhead for barely 1 whole day, and you already feel confined by it, both geographically and socially. The evening seems to offer little. To do some stargazing, go to 131. To attempt to speak to Ruth, go to 138. If you have a previous appointment, this is the time to follow it up. Alright, we do have a previous appointment to follow up, so we need to go that entry number plus 20. So we're going to entry 200. Right. Entry 200. Arbogast is not at the appointed meeting place. You give him 10 minutes, but he doesn't show. You curse the old crank and head back toward May's house. Psst. A hand snakes from a doorway and grabs your arm. You jump at the sight of that half-face glimpsed in the starlight. One of them's near, he whispers. Watching. Come with me. Go to 169. Okay. Alright. 169. Arbogast leads you across the thoroughfares, slipping between houses. The metal structure looms at the end of the street. Silent now, he says, but the beacon will come alive tomorrow night. He ushers you into a little alcove behind the village school. Arbogast glances behind you, then sits down. Again you feel uncomfortable in proximity to that scarred visage. One melted eyelid lifts. You don't have long. Understand this. I was the conduit, the interpreter. Before that fool Winters and his fancy words. The things which come to Emberhead care not for words. These idiots think this is a ritual of sacrifice. He spits on the grass. It is a ritual of control. They know the words, but they do not comprehend the forces they call. He sniffs and sits back. No, you have no time for more questions. I will teach you how to end it, in the moment when all is lost. You can return this hill to the earth, to the death that came 40 years ago. I have tried it myself. But, his head sags, I no longer have the concentration. The chant is simple. I can teach it. I can teach you, but you must perform it with the clarity of mind that I have lacked for years. If you will learn this strange chant, go to 175. If you had enough of Arbogast, go to 182. We'll learn this strange chant. There's something off about this place, so... 175. You feel very dislocated from reality as you sit on a cliff top behind a school at night, learning a chant by rote from a madman. Arbogast is careful to teach you it in sections. He glances into the sky. Won't work right now, cloud covering the star. But he still takes care not to pronounce the whole thing at once. It has a rhythmic beginning and various elaborations, but the core passage is repeated 3 times. I am not even going to try to pronounce that. The only part I recognize is the Ya Cthulhu, but I'm going to just butcher the rest of it so I won't try. In time, Arbogast listens to your recital and nods. Remember every sound, but never speak it if you have plans left on this earth. You have discovered a secret. If your situation ever becomes desperate enough to try Arbogast's ritual, the text will offer you the option to chant. At that point, if you want to try it, add 10 to your current entry number and go to that new entry. Arbogast leans back. It will make you one with the living. Living, go to 188. So I'm going to make a note about the secret. Chant. This time it's entry plus 10. So go to 188. A black shape lunges from the dark. It wraps an arm around Arbogast's throat and drags him backwards, out of the alcove. He grabs at the arm, kicking empty air. You see the gleam of a long blade in the moonlight. Make a dodge roll. If you succeed, go to 195. If you fail, go to 203. So dodge is half dex, which means we're facing a roll of 25. This is going to suck. So we're against a 25. I'll zoom in a little bit so I can pick up the result. A 36, so we do fail, to my lack of surprise. Still, that was closer than I expected it to be, so 203. Something smashes you on the temple. You reel back. You hear Arbogast yell and see the knife flash. 1, 2, 3 times. Its shiny surface darkening with blood. Something strikes you again, and as you sink, flames leap from the ground, painting the night with infernal color. They pick out 3 dark figures. Take 1d6 damage, go to 45. Alright, so we'll grab our d6. And the elder sign here is the 6. So this is one time where I actually don't want to see the elder sign, believe it or not. Four points of damage is pretty bad, but survivable. So that brings us up to 9. And then we go to 45. You awake with a jolt, wrestling with the blankets, ready for attack. The Ledbetter guest room is quiet, painted with morning light. There is nobody here but you. You release the blankets and wait for your heart to stop hammering. Go to 64. The Ledbetter kitchen is empty, although bread and eggs have been laid out for your breakfast. There is a note from May explaining that she has taken Ruth out for a few hours. If you were involved in a fight in the village last night and want to investigate the aftermath, go to 70. Otherwise, go to 78. We were involved in a fight last night where Arbogast and I got attacked, and I will go investigate. Come on. You feel skittish as you approach the spot where you and Arbogast were attacked. Your memory of the encounter is shaky, but you remember 1 or 2 vivid images. At first, you think there is nothing to see. No discarded weapons or figures lying unconscious. But upon closer examination, you find sticky, congealed patches and blackened lines in the grass. If the village had a police station, you could go there. But something tells you events have gone beyond that. Go to 78. You make a quiet circuit of the village, pausing in unobtrusive places to watch the villagers. It is rather busy for this time in the morning. Yawning locals stream back and forth along the roads, carrying bundles of split logs to the site of what you'd heard referred to as the beacon. You see 2 figures already up in its superstructure, arranging the wood. The festival bonfire will be most impressive, but do you intend to stay to see it? You suspect by now that something is amiss here. While the villagers are distracted, you may do some illicit investigation, or you may simply leave town without looking back. You may now search May Ledbetter's bedroom, go to 83. Go alone to the village hall, go to 126. Take a closer look at the artisan's courtyard, go to 219. Spy an activity at the beacon, go to 29. Or slip down the east road and try to flee for good, go to 7. Let's take a look at the artisan's courtyard. So go to 219. You approach around the back of the buildings in Emberhead's northwestern corner. By this time in the morning, you would expect activity in the artisan's courtyard, but the benches and anvils sit deserted. Your footsteps echo off the surrounding walls. One of the workshops is shut up and padlocked. You peek through the joints, but you can see nothing inside. To try to crack the padlock, go to 225. To physically break into the locked workshop, go to 232. To move on to another area, go to 120. Let's try to crack the padlock. So go to 225. You examine the padlock. It is old and not particularly secure. There are plenty of metal shavings around that could work as improvised locks. But can you really pick a lock? Make a locksmith roll. You may double your skill for this roll only. If you succeed, mark the small box beside the skill and go to 244. If you fail, go to 238. Oh no, doubling my skill is actually a 40 in this case. So I might have a decent chance of pulling this one off. So we're at a 40 since we get to double it. Which is still very much not good enough to pass because that is a 66, so we definitely fail. Go to 238. You step back from the door and regard it in frustration. A crunching noise distracts you, and a human shadow falls on a nearby wall. Someone is approaching. You melt away in the other direction. Go to 120. Let's see. Alright. You feel a deepening unease about Emberhead and this day in particular. Once you have attempted 3 of the options below, go to 98. So the one we can't do right now is go to the artisan's courtyard. So let's spy an activity at the beacon. So 29. The northern side of the village is bustling and you are unlikely to remain hidden there for long. You head in the direction of the church and then move up the east side behind the houses. A drop looms on your right. One particular section of ground is quite narrow and you have to hug the building for support. You may give up this approach and go to 120. Well, we're not going to give up. To proceed, compare your size to your dex. If your dex is higher, go to 42, which it is not. My dex is 50, my size is 60. So since my size is higher, I've got to make a size roll. So I'm rolling against a 60. Alright, that is an 8, so we pass. Actually, that would be an extreme success, but I don't think it's going to be relevant here. So the size was successful, so we go to 42. The turf sinks beneath your feet and stones crumble from its edge. Alarmed, you grip the building and ease yourself forward. Finally, you have a good spot to watch the beacon. Go to 61. You lie concealed in the grass and watch the activity around the beacon. Villagers bring in yet more bundles of tinder and stack them in neat piles. Another shift passes the bundles up to a pair of men standing on the raised platform of the beacon. They are constructing a triangular structure, resembling a gigantic campfire. As you watch, you are struck by the manner of the laborers. This is their festival. You would expect a cheerful atmosphere and some lighthearted conversation, yet the faces of some show resignation and detachment. Others, a naked dread. You watch for a good half hour before you slip away. Go to 120. So that'll be back to our hub for the day today. Alright, so the last thing I think we're going to try is... let's go to the village hall. Go to 126. Keeping away from the streets, you skirt the northern cliffs and approach the village hall from the rear. It is close to the beacon, and you will not be able to use the door unobserved. You check the windows. The one on the east side, facing the beacon, is bricked up. A shutter is loose on the westernmost window, and you are able to ease it open and slide inside, closing the shutter behind you. You drop into the village meeting room and pad through. Passing through the dim shafts of the light and listening to the excited chatter of the locals from outside. The door opposite reads, "Private." Hearing nothing from the other side, you turn the handle. Go to 133. This is probably not going to be a good thing. The room is lined with books. In the corner is a small water closet and pantry. A quick survey of the rest of the room reveals little, so you turn to the bookcase. The dim light makes it difficult to read the spines. Is there anything useful here? Make a spot hidden roll. I have not examined this bookshelf before, so I don't get a bonus die. Right now my spot hidden is a 60, so we need to be under that. We are under that with a 50, so we have passed. That takes us to 147. Alright. 147. You're looking along the spines when you notice how close the bookcase is to the window on the north wall. From outside, there's a solid 3 or 4 feet between the edge of the window and the wall, and the bookcase covers the wall with the bricked-up window. Further examination reveals an ingenious arrangement of slipcases physically attached to the shelves. When you pull to the left, an entire section of the bookcase swings out. The clatter of activity around the beacon seems to be building, and you flinch at every conversation that gets too close to the building's door. To investigate behind the bookcase, go to 153. To close it and make your escape while you can, go to 120. Well, we are going to investigate behind the bookcase, but I need to take a quick break. So I will be right back. Sorry about that, needed a small break. Now, coming back, 153, we're going behind the bookcase. Alright, 153. You squint into the darkness behind the bookcase. It is a small alcove, big enough for one person, and has a hidden shelf on either side. You cannot make out any titles in this light. To risk opening one of the cliffside windows a little, go to 165. To grab a few books and leave, go to 159. Let's grab a few of the books and leave. We'll go to 159. $159. You slip from the building, clutching some of the more portable volumes. In the shadows behind the artisan's courtyard, you examine them. To your disappointment, 2 or 3 are in a script unknown to you. Another appears to be in Egyptian symbols. There is a spidery, handwritten copy of something called the Emerald Tablet. Perhaps most intriguing is a small book of strange poetry bound in black, published in Boston in 1919. The cover reads, Azathoth and Others by Edward Derby. You'll have to hide the larger volumes, but you can pocket the Derby book. The Derby volume will require about a week of adventure to fully comprehend. If you survive this adventure, you may read 171 for more information about it. Let me make a note of that. But for now, we're going back to 120, which is our exploration hub. So Derby 171. If survive. For now, back to 120. Which, as we recall, is our exploration hub. So we've done 3 of these now. We've gone to the village hall, we've looked at the quarters in the courtyard, and we've had an activity at the beacon. So now we go to 98. You are contemplating your next move when you see one villager, a bald man with a damaged ear, watching you intently. Some instinct makes you walk in the other direction. Then you see the others ahead and to your sides. A wary teenager, an evil-eyed matron, and a man hefting a club. They're not staring as obviously as the first, but they keep you under watch, and they're closing in. You can't hope to overcome 4 of them at once. To try to lose them among the buildings, go to 158. To run for it, go to 164. How do we want to try to lose them? Or how do we want to try to get away? Do we want to try to lose them or run for it? I think we'll try to lose them. So go to 158. You dart down an alley, then turn and head in a completely different direction. Running feet sound behind you. For the first time, you feel Emberhead's cramped, chaotic streets work in your favor. You try to circle around toward the southern road. Make a stealth roll. If you succeed, you may checkmark the box beside the stealth skill and go to 7. If you fail, go to 170. With a stealth skill of 20, I don't like our odds of this. But we'll find out. $35 is not going to do it, so go to 170. You turn a corner and walk straight into the formidable woman with the malevolent stare. She grabs your shoulders and bears down on you. As you struggle, the man with the club runs up with the teenager. You are quickly overcome. Go to 108. Oh joy. The fading light from a narrow window tells you afternoon is giving way to evening. Your hands are shackled behind your back so you cannot even lie down on the rough bed. A woman you have not seen before comes in. Her face is wrinkled and her eyes dull. They do not meet yours, but she puts a cup to your lip. To accept the drink, go to 104. To reject it, go to 113. I don't trust these people for a second. So yeah, we'll go to 113. You turn your face away, and when she tries again, you dash the cup from her hands using the side of your head. The clear liquid spills across the floor. The woman gives a half shrug and turns to leave the room. You shout after her, but she gives no reaction. You soon become thirsty. Go to 205. Oh joy. Let's see. As the light fades outside, your little prison becomes dark. You can hear much activity around the building. Occasionally an orange glow passes the window. The only comfortable position in the shackles seems to be to sit against the end of the bed with your arms hanging behind you. You need to concentrate and come up with a plan. There is clearly no escape from your bonds. You do not know exactly what your captors want from you, but you cannot ignore the fact that they've spent the entire day constructing a massive bonfire. Go to 27. Gee, I wonder what they want with that massive bonfire. I don't think this is going to take too much of a wild guess, but anyway. 27. The door scrapes, wrenching you back into the moment. Orange light spills into the house from blazing torches held at the threshold. Two large villagers step in and grab you. At least, you assume they're villagers. They wear heavy black cloaks, and their faces and hands are painted entirely black, save only for a red triangle centered on their left eye. You try to drag your legs, but they reach under your arms and lift you bodily from the bed. Outside, it seems that the whole village has congregated to see you. Every single one has a blackened face with a red triangle motif. Torches sputter and spill fire. You struggle, but you can see physical resistance is hopeless. You are marched to the central street and turn to face the beacon. Go to 117. Uh-oh. I think we're in deep here, boys and girls. The procession down the approach is slow and formal, save when you sense weakness and yank at your captors. A chill touches you when you see three human shapes carried ahead of you, draped in red cloth. The beacon looms larger and larger, its dreadful silhouette a black triangle pointing to the stars. A low drone begins among the cloaked figures. Unbidden, the word mourners comes to mind. Smoke from their torches makes you cough. You feel heat on your face. As you reach the cleared area around the beacon, three dancers break from the pack. Young girls swinging balls of fire in spectacular arcs, drawing circles in the night air. One by one, they draw close to you and touch your forehead with sooty fingers. Each kisses you 3 times, on the left cheek, right cheek, then forehead. Then they whisper in your ear. The smell of kerosene fills your nostrils. Make an appearance roll. If you succeed, go to 10. If you fail, go to 148. So we're looking at an appearance skill of a 50. Let's see what we get here. A 52, so we just barely fail. Go to 148. Through your sacrifice, the village will be reborn, says the first dancer. You pass from earth to air for all our sakes, says the second. Through incandescence may you find rapture, says the third. Their dance weaves off and disappears behind the buildings. Go to 18. Okay, yeah, there's definitely something more than a little out there. Okay, 18. As you arrive beneath the beacon, 10 villagers close in on you. Working with surprising coordination, they immobilize you and lift you up the blackened iron stairs to the raised platform. You cannot help but shiver at the sight of the central framework, twisted from past blazes, and what you can now clearly see to be fastening points for chain. None of the eyes meet yours as they lash you to the metal. The village sings now, something rhythmic and ancient, carved from odd syllables. A second group ascends to the beacon, carrying the 3 red-draped bodies. With reverence, they arrange their burdens in a triangle around your feet. Then they withdraw, leaving you alone with the dead, shin-deep in a sea of kindling. Go to 33. Oh boy. Alright. 30. Let me pull it this way. It seems the entire village is gathered around the beacon to watch you burn. Behind the face paint, you recognize May Ledbetter and, yes, that is Silas the coach driver standing at her side. The audacity and scale of the deception staggers you. A man steps up on a dais and raises his hand with quiet authority. The frame of his spectacles obscures the red triangle on his face. So we draw here together again on this night, as we do each year, and we give thanks to the one who will preserve the village against the fire of the void. You will be taken from by the ones from above in our stead. Your death will bring life to our streets and bounty to our fields. It will safeguard our children and our elders alike for another year. We salute you. He bows his head. All around the beacon, bearers step forward and lift their torches to the edge of the raised platform. A ring of tiny flames flicker up around the perimeter. As they wink, the singing of the villagers drops it into an unearthly rhythm. To throw all your remaining strength against the bonds, go to 44. To wait and see what happens, go to 40. Might as well throw our strength against our bonds. We're getting pretty desperate here. $44. You're tired, and your flesh ought to be insufficient against the dark iron of the chains. Yet you can feel them give a little. There's a weakness in one of the links. Make a hard strength roll. If you succeed, go to 53. If you fail, go to 40. Our strength is 80, so a hard roll would be a 40, which means we need to be at or below 40. And we are. That is a... Let me zoom in on that. But that is a 22, so we have passed that hard strength test. So go to 53. As tongues of fire lick towards you through the kindling, you close your eyes and heave on the chains. They give a little more, then clack. One side of the chain drops. You wriggle in the coils, loosening the bond even as heat singes your ankles. The man on the dais stares at your movements. Then he picks two youths from the crowd and points directly at you. Just as you shrug the chain off and step free from the ironwork, the youths mount the blazing platform. Flames spread up their trousers. As their cloaks catch, they dive at you. Make a hard dodge roll. If you succeed, go to 109. If you fail, go to 123. Uh-oh. Our dodge, remember, is half dex, so 20... So basically we have to be under a 12. This might be worth spending some luck on, too. Never mind. Wow. Can't believe we rolled that naturally, but that is an 11, so we have passed. So if you succeed, go to 109. Alright. 109. You slither from the grasp of the youths. Fire pours across their shoulders and ignites their hair. Curtains of smoke shroud you. Your legs are burning. You must get off the beacon immediately. Take 1d6 hit points of damage from the fire. If this reduces you to 0, you collapse and you're burned to death. The end. If not, go to 137. Okay, so we take 1d6, but we're at 9 health, so I doubt this is going to burn us to death. Because we'd have to be reduced to 0. And I don't think there's any way we take... I don't think we take 9... We can't take 9 points of damage from d6, so let's see how much we do take. We take another 4 points of damage, so we've been getting rocked here, but... We are at 5 HP, so we do survive, which means we go to 137. Alright. Let me zoom this out just a little bit. There we go. 137. You leap from the conflagration on the far side of the beacon. Your heart lurches momentarily at the sight of the sheer drop beneath you, but you land a few inches short of the edge. You roll to extinguish your burning clothes. Your lungs feel singed. Everything hurts. The chant of the villagers gathers in intensity. You peer around the beacon. They don't seem to have noticed your absence amidst the billowing smoke. Most of them are staring into the sky. You crawl as rapidly as you can for the cover of the nearest building. Go to 156. We're not out of the woods yet, folks. With the villagers assembled at the beacon, The streets are empty and you're able to pad away from the blaze. You must get out of town before they finish. The chanting seems to accelerate as you round the corner of the southern road. Here, parked against the side of the general store, you have your first piece of luck since reaching Emberhead. A bicycle. You learn to ride one of these in Providence. You settle into the saddle. Your burned flesh protests at the contact. To wait and observe goings on at the beacon, go to 168. To ride out of town immediately, go to 185. The entire village has tried to burn us alive. There is no way I'm staying put. So let's go to 185. It takes a moment to recapture the skill of riding the bicycle, but after the first turn to the east, there is a long downhill out of Emberhead. You hear screams and crackles above you, but concentrate on balancing and working the pedals in your weakened state. You've already had too many hopes dashed in this abomination of a village. You keep your head down and ride away. 20 minutes later, with no sign of pursuit, you stop for a breather at the top of a hill. You can see Emberhead rise in the distance. The entire village appears to be ablaze. The dark column of smoke above it will be visible for many miles, but if the village is as isolated as it seems, help is unlikely to arrive in time. You watch the place burn for 5 minutes. Then you mount the bicycle again and ride toward civilization and dawn. Congratulations! You have survived this adventure. You may keep your investigator sheet and use it in another Call of Cthulhu scenario. If you have checkmarked the box besides any skills, you will have a chance to improve them from experience. See Book 2, page 22. The end. So we have survived this adventure. 5, male, Arkham, Massachusetts, birthplace, we're going to call, we'll say New York City. But anyway, so that's just working on fleshing out the character. We also do get to read entry 171 from the book that we grabbed earlier. So, yeah. Entry 171. It takes you a full week to absorb Derby's poetry. His verses tell of something at the center of existence, an oscillating, consuming mass, which rips apart the very fabric of the universe. Its emissary, sometimes named the Faceless One, sometimes the Crawling Chaos, brings a terrible derangement to all it touches. The words have a certain quality, not of vivid imagination, but of helpless revelation. As you spend time with the volume, you notice insidious connections between the poems which begin to disturb you. Make a sanity roll. Lose 1 point if you succeed, and 1d4 points if you fail. You may gain 4 points of Cthulhu Mythos skill. You will never again rest quite so easily. The end. So we'll make our sanity roll. Which, as we recall, our sanity is 49, so a 33 is good for a pass, which means we lose 1. Then I will add 4 points to Silas's Cthulhu Mythos and we have completed Alone Against the Flames. So we'll need to flesh out the character. I'm actually going to do that later this week. We'll have another video where we go through and flesh out his backstory. But anyway, that will do it for this adventure of Alone Against the Flames. Next week we'll stay in the Alone adventures as we play some more Call of Cthulhu, but this time we'll be Alone Against the Tide. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to also turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.